Good morning everybody, and welcome back to another weekly recap. In the weekly recap, I like to go over any news related to the old school RuneScape community this week. Now today we did get a game update, and finally we have some Revenant Cave changes. Now that said, not all of the changes that are coming to the Revenant Cave are live today, and we're going to talk a bit about what has been added today as well as what's been left out, because there's quite a few things that are yet to come. But one thing's for sure, the Revenant Cave did receive a fairly significant buff. We're going to be covering that and anything else interesting in the old school RuneScape community. Thanks for watching as always, guys. Hope you enjoy. If you do, always appreciate a like in the video. Anyway, let's get started. So let's begin with what actually was changed in today's game update. Well, primarily the Revenant Caves, although there are also some changes to the permanent Deadman mode world as well. Now these changes to the Revenant Cave are part of a larger wilderness update, however today we only got a few parts of them. Now the wilderness is due to get a bunch of different changes, including a new Revenant boss, a new Slayer only dungeon. Revenants are going to be getting buffed, including a larger spawn rate, more loot dropped per Revenant, and a whole host of other changes to the cave. Now this was all originally proposed back in July, the very 1st of July. So what did we actually get today? We know that other changes discussed in the Wilderness Changes blog are highly anticipated and long-awaited updates, and fear not, this update is just the first of many updates coming involving the Revenant Caves. It's regrettable that we haven't been able to bring these tweaks sooner, as features like loot keys and wilderness bosses are going to be very exciting for the wilderness. Unfortunately, these features will not appear in-game until 2022, for which we apologize. Okay, so no loot keys and no wilderness bosses for sure until next year. The next update from this batch will include the Wilderness Slayer Cave improvement and the introduction of a PJ timer throughout the wilderness for both players and NPCs. However, we don't have a concrete date on this yet, but we'll update you as soon as we have news to share. Okay, so the Slayer Cave improvement and PJ timer probably will come in 2021, although that's a bit unclear. Okay, so what actually was changed today? Well, the Revenant Caves received a few changes. First up here, the number of Revenant Cave teleport scrolls dropped per loot has been increased from 1 to between 1 and 10. So being able to teleport to the Revenant Cave is going to be way easier and cheaper. And if we have a look at the price, they've already dropped 4 or 5 times in value. So they're definitely going to be cheaper. Next up, Revenant loot tables will now have an extra chance to drop blighted items on top of their normal loot. So presumably blighted items will become a lot more common. And finally here, multiple item drops will now appear in greater quantities. Now that's all they say, and they don't state in this blog exactly what they've changed about the drop table. So to confirm, if we look back at the original Revenant blog, they said they're going to be reducing the spawn timers by 30% so they respawn faster. And the standard drops from Revenants are going to be increased by 50%. So 30% more Revenants, 50% more loot. So overall, the caves are going to be a lot more lucrative. However, there is going to be now a caveat to this. To help balance out the risk and reward aspect of the caves, from the rebalancing, most of the drops from the Revenant NPCs are no longer noted unless you have an Amulet of Avarice equipped. So this was known in the original poll blog. This was always going to be the case. However, in addition to this change, the Amulet of Avarice was supposed to also have an additional 20% accuracy and damage towards Revenants. That would put it on par with a Salve Amulet. However, they didn't get around to making the change today. It looks like they just forgot. So currently Revenants are in an odd state where if you want to have everything noted, you need to sacrifice 20% of your DPS. Alternatively, you could just bring a Salve Amulet and leave the unnoted things on the ground, which is a bit of an awkward state, as because they accidentally left out the extra damage and accuracy on the Amulet of Avarice. In the next update next week, they will be adding it to hopefully fix this problem and to make the Amulet of Avarice more viable. So on top of that, they've also changed how the Revenants heal. So Revenants are now going to have a cooldown on their healing ability that will prevent them from healing for 15 cycles, which is 9 seconds. They're now going to be guaranteed to heal whenever they attack while they're below half HP, so long as their heal is ready and not on cooldown. And finally, they can only heal themselves a total of 8 to 36 times before being unable to heal again. I'm sure that number will depend on the Revenant you're fighting. So if you really are taking a long time to kill them, the amount they can heal will eventually cap out. So I think I mentioned this, but on top of making the loot more common, they've doubled the number of Revenants throughout the caves, so they're way more common, and the defeated Revenants will now respawn 33% faster. So marginally higher than it was back in the original blog. So all that's to say is yes, Revenants are a lot more profitable right now, but I think a lot of people think they're in a bit of an awkward state because the Amulet of Avarice is in an awkward state. Right now, it doesn't provide extra damage, which means it doesn't feel that great to take it, but the alternative is having to deal with unnoted items, which feels a bit clunky. I also do think a lot of people are confused as to why they increased the amount of Revenant Cave teleport scrolls that have been dropped. If the idea is to try to get players to stay in the Revenant Cave as long as possible, and to actually provide good loot for PKers, why make it so much cheaper and easier to get back to the cave? Not sure. Now that said, they did say there are going to be a lot more batches for this wilderness change, so I'm interested to see what is going to be added next, and if we're going to get it this year or not. Alright, so on top of the Revenant Cave changes, we also got a few changes to the Deadman mode permanent world. So first up here, Deadman players now have access to the dwarves that operate the blast furnace, of course, for an hourly fee. Pest control is now accessible as long as you have at least 5 people, which honestly might even be hard to organize with the current player counts being 132 players. When closing the bank, you're now blocked from eating or drinking potions for a few ticks. Players are now able to pack certain items, such as a multi-cannon, into sets via the clerk at the Grand Exchange, which I didn't realize you couldn't do on Deadman World, but apparently now you can. The Emblem Trader in Edgeville now offers blighted spell sacks in the shop. Players who die during PvP may now lose 10% of their experience in their unprotected skills. PVM deaths for unskilled players are not affected. Certain rune and archery shops are now going to restock faster, similar to seasonal and tournament worlds. Skulled players entering guarded zones will no longer be frozen. Instead, the guards will express their frustration by shouting at you loudly, whilst attacking you with damage that ramps up over time. And finally here, when you kill an NPC in the wilderness, there's now a small chance to get a Vesta's Spear, Vesta's Longsword, or really any of the other ancient warrior weapons. Now there are a few changes to Group Ironman. Probably one of the bigger ones is the close button in the group storage interface will now automatically save the group storage, which means as soon as you exit, it will just auto-save, where previously you'd have to specifically save the storage. The new Halloween sweater is now also going to be a warm item as far as Wintertot is concerned. So you're able to rock the spooky shirt there, no problem. And that pretty much brings us to the end of this week's game update. So overall, a bit of a quiet week. However, one exciting piece of news actually comes from RuneLite, where they have an image teasing the potential removal of an FPS cap in RuneLite. Currently, I think it caps at 50. However, it looks like they're working on potentially trying to get that removed so you could have as high as FPS as your computer could handle. Personally, I think it would make a difference increasing it from 50 FPS, and I look forward to hopefully getting this part of RuneLite as soon as possible. So anyway guys, that is going to be it for the weekly recap. Hope you guys enjoyed it as always. Thanks for watching guys, and I will see you next time. Now before I go here guys, I want to give a giant thank you to all of my members over on YouTube. Thank you so much to Sejuani's Flail, The Hybrid, Ocelot, and Kush Patel for all being subscribed at the Dragon tier. You guys are awesome. Thank you guys so much as always. Also another giant shout out to Mexos, Basetich, MDM001, and Yo-Yo Sub 89 for being subscribed at the Runite tier. Thanks a lot guys. As always, if you guys are looking for another way to support the channel, becoming a YouTube member is an awesome way to do so. Get immortalized in all of my future videos, get a custom role in my Discord server, and get access to my video release schedule. Thanks again guys, and I'll see you next time.